Now let us see the options under role mass maintenance. Okay. Now let's see what does role import do. So like we saw earlier, right? We have some roles in the backend system that are not available for us in the BRM system. Now these are the roles that were custom created, right? We created in the backend system. Now, along with this custom roles, you also have SAP standard roles that SAP gives you, right? SAP delivered roles. So we are just seeing what we have here, okay? Now, let's go back to role import. Now, when you did the role search, right, you also didn't find the SAP's delivered roles also, right? So if we go to say role search, right, let's quickly do that. And let's say we search for roles, SAP delivered roles. We don't have anything here because the SAP delivered roles exist only on the backend system. So if you want to use any of the backend roles as part of user provisioning in ARM, access request management, those roles need to be in BRM too. Okay. So in a way, access request management is dependent on BRM for provisioning purposes. Okay, it needs to find the roles. Now, how do we get those backend roles into the BRM systems? So that the way to do that is to import the roles. Okay, now there are multiple ways of doing the import. You can import from any of these, backend system. You can have a downloaded, you can download the attribute file template and then populate the data, in this template and then upload that file. The file can exist in the server, on a server or on a desktop, or you can totally skip this altogether. Okay, so, and the source also, right? Whether you're going to import it, it is coming from the file on the server. If you're coming from taking the data from the file, then file on server option under role attribute source and the file on server in the role authorization source, they need to be selected. They need to go together. Same thing with file on desktop, file on desktop. Okay, user input goes with backend system. Okay, now you can upload these technical roles, business roles, and CUX composite roles. Okay, import basically. Now, let us go and see, to take a couple of examples to do this. Okay, so now, see here you have this, right? So we'll come to this in a minute. Okay, so select the application type that we have. So we have SAP. So we want to, what we are trying to say here now is we want to import the role from the SAP systems. Okay, what's the landscape? So this is basically your connector settings, right? So depending on your connector settings, you pick the connectors landscape to bring the roles from that particular landscape. Now overwrite existing roles. What it means is if the role that you are trying to import from the backend system into the BRM system, if they exist in both places, whether you want that role to be overwritten in the BRM system or not. So let's say no, or yes, because we don't have the roles anyway, right? Now, what is your source system? So you select your connect to the RFC connection here, right? Role after it. So if you want to update, if you want to import the roles which were updated after a certain period of time, you could do that. Okay, now we'll leave that alone. Now all except SAP predefined roles. So if you don't want the SAP predefined roles to be imported into BRM, then you can select this box. Okay, but sometimes you do assign, so you can pick and choose what roles you want to bring into SAP sorry, into BRM. Okay, so let's leave that alone for a minute. Now, here, if you have a range, right, you can either import one single role, or you can give a range of roles. Okay, so you can say from A star to Z star. Okay, or you can give a role pattern, for example. So you can just say, see, in the backend system, let's say you have the role beginning with P and beginning with X, right? So you can say P star to X star. Okay, if that is what you want, or you can simply say P star. Okay, or you can simply import one role. Okay, so let's go with this one role first, and then we will see what happens with the rest. Okay, so let's import this only one role as an example, as a first example, methodology status. So you want that to be in the complete status, right? All right. So once you do that, click on next. Now here you have to specify the role attributes. Okay, now if you're doing it one by one, it's okay. Now you can manually, assign. But if you're doing mass of, imports, then this is not a good idea because, um, if whatever role attributes you assign, that is assigned to all the roles that are imported. Okay. So you need to be very careful in how you're importing these roles. Okay. You can just import, for example, there is anything with FI, right? I can import all the roles, FI, FIN roles together. Then I can import MM roles separately, SD roles separately. Okay. So, so the reason is because if you end up assigning the attributes like the role owner, the functional areas, all that, every role gets the same attributes, right? And if you don't assign, right, you can basically skip this steps also if you want to, but then you'll have to later on go and manually assign these attributes one by one to each and every role. So you need to be very careful with that. Now you see this business process is defaulting here, and we know why, right? We saw that in the attributes. So in one of the attributes, not the attributes, sorry, the configuration parameters. There is a parameter that we maintain with MM0, right? So let's quickly go and see what that parameter was. See, this one, 3000 default business process. So that is why it is defaulting to MM00. Okay, now let's pick, this is related to, what role did we take? Finance, right? So let's pick critical level as high, project release, and this is finance. And let's say this is accounts payable, okay? Now, you can go and assign a functional area, okay? We'll search for this role, okay? Once we import it, we'll search for this role and see whether we are, all these attributes are assigned to that role or not. Now I want to assign the role owners, okay? Search, this is a finance role. So let's go and check the finance approver and role owner, and then alternate role owner, right? And then assignment and role content approver. So company, right? If you want to assign the company to which this role belongs to, pick the company name. If okay, and then let's not okay. Preview all roles. Show preview. So you're importing this role from the backend system. That's what we are doing, right? When we are 40 CR payments, right? Say next and ticket number. So we said, right, every change that we do, we need a ticket number. So 555 testing importing roles 1, okay, and submit. Okay, success. All right. Now let us see, so successfully imported, right? One role. Now let us see if this role has come into the BRM system or not. So let's go and then do a role search for it quickly, right? So what is that we had? So we had P stacks and the fin. Okay, this is what we want. Or you can do it just simply say fin, P star and then search and you anyway get all the roles from that begin with P, right? Now if you look at the last role, so this is the role we imported, right? Now if you open it and then let's go to more details, right? And let's look at the different. So we assign the critical level as high. If we want to edit and give a role recertification, period dates. Okay, you can days, you can give it here. You can give the sensitivity. See, the thing that I was saying was if you do a mass import, okay, and if you don't maintain any of those attributes, you will have to do that, maintain those attributes one by one manually. Okay, so that is one issue. The other also issue is that, even if you maintain at the time of, all those attributes at the time of importing, not all roles can have the same role owner, or not all roles can belong to the same business process or sub process. So there will be different attributes that will be different, right? So you will again have to come back and come here and then edit the each role attribute manually. So that is why if you have a solid naming convention in the backend system, it becomes easy for you to maintain these attributes, at one shot. So basically, role import, what we are basically doing is, in a way, from an attribute standpoint, it's like a SU10, right? So all the roles that you have, you need to assign common attributes, like common role owners or alternate role owners or business processes and sub processes. Then you only import in batches, right? You only import such roles, okay? So that you don't have to manually and assign the attributes or change the attributes later on. All right, so let's check the functional area. Finance is there. Then we had assigned the approvers. We have the approvers, right? Um, right. Now save and continue, like we know, like we said, right? Once you edit the role, you have to take it to the complete phase. Okay, here. So complete, there's no derived rule for this right now, but you have to run the risk analysis. Okay, so analyze the risks, save ground. Now you know that you need to select your own rule set, okay, against which it has to go. Now go and save and continue, and save and continue. So we'll see why this is not generated. Okay, save. So you need to generate the role. Okay, so let's go previous step. Okay, generate, next, next, oh, password. We didn't generate the role. Okay, okay, that's fine. We just did. If you want to run the risk analysis again, you can do that, but it's already there. Submit. So role one role generated, close. And now you continue and take it to the complete phase. So whenever you change the roles, it has to be in the complete phase. All right. So we generated, so we brought in, we imported one role. Okay. Now let's see let's go and import some more roles. Okay. So let's say, this time, let's say we go and so there are roles that begin with an X, right? That's a pattern. Okay, for example, then you have a role that begin with PSD. So a couple of roles, so that's a pattern. Then you have some more roles that begin with PFIN, and then within PFIN there's a sub-process, right? One is FI, other is OT, the others are PT. So depending on, who the role owners are, if the role owners are going to be different for each of the sets, then you import that in those groups. So for example, I would have a security, role owners for security, right? So I'll go and just import, these two roles, right? So what I'm going to do is I look for a pattern here. So it says X colon SEC. So let's go and import the security roles. Okay, in this now. So select user import, then backend system. Application type is SAP. Then landscape is R3. Existing role, no. And the source system is RFC connection is ours is this. And then role from X colon SEC asterisk. Okay, so we are running a pattern here now. Okay, the methodology status should be complete. Okay, now, say next. So what should happen here now, once we finish, we should have these two roles imported. Okay, so let's go back. And next, and default attributes. Okay, so you select user attributes, okay, user defined, critical levels. Hi, project release, you give a project release, you change the business process to so it's a basis. Let's say security. Okay. Now you can go and assign the functional area. I hope we have something to give. Okay, so we don't have security as a functional area. Let's give IT. Okay. Then click on role owners. And I think we had created role owners for security also, right? Yeah, we have one. Security. And then let's go and create the alternate, assign the alternates owner also. Select assignment approval and role content approval. Next, preview, show preview. See, so you get these two rows. You're going to import these two roles now, right? Sec admin, security help desk. Security admin and security help desk. Okay. Now next, and let's say 555. So testing role import. Okay, let's do that. Okay, now you submit. Okay, two roles successfully imported, two. All right, let's close this and go back and do a role search. If I do this, well, let's see what happens. Right, you get everything. All right. So if you see, you have those two roles here and they are in complete phase. Now, if you select this, again, you know that, there is no, you don't have certain attributes maintained, like the sensitivity or this period, right? So let's leave it like that, and rest of the, we didn't assign the company. So we can assign the company here, but then we'll have to go through all these phases again. So we're not doing it now. We already saw that. So let's close this. All right. Now let's take another example, right? Role import. All right. So what else do we have? So now we imported these two. We saw how to import a role with a pattern. Now let's go and import everything that begins with a P or pfin. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, so we can do pfin to PSD. Let's do that. Here's an example, right? We're giving a range. I mean, range in the sense from and to ranges. That's what I mean. Okay, so select the source system. Now, if you want to import every single role, right? If I say see, we already imported 4 roles. So now when I say this, and then just simply go and start executing it, all these 2 roles that we imported, this role and the X roles and the first role, they also get imported, re-imported. And this time what happens is, because we said existing roles, overwrite existing roles, yes, the roles will be overwritten. So the changes that we made the first time, those will be gone. Okay. All right. So I'm not doing a blank run for now, because we can do a blank run for that now. Okay, let's do this. Let's do for this range from fin to mm, and another example we'll do a blank run. Okay, so that the SD roles are also imported. So let's do that. So from you are going to say from p colon to fin to p colon to mm asterisk. Okay, so the idea is we import these rows. Okay, we are not including this and this. Okay, so let's go back. So click on next now, and but before we do that, let's see what we have here, right? So all roles except SAP predefined. We don't need to check this box in this example because we are giving a range here. And if you also don't want, if the roles don't exist, we can say no here, because if you've made any changes to the roles that already existing in BRM, you don't want those roles to be overwritten, right? Especially the attributes, because we know that it's a manual process to do. All right, so let's go and now go to the next step. Okay. Now here's the problem, right? So in this case, you have one role that is, let's say, related to MM, right? The rest are related to finance. So what do we do? Now that's what we were talking about earlier, right? So if you do a mass import of roles and they belong to different business processes or sub processes, or functional areas, and so it becomes a very tedious process to make those changes again. So anyway, so because in our example, we have only one role and the majority of them are finance, we can take finance and then accounts payable, critical level, let's say high, product release, SP, functional area. The reason we are taking finance is because there's only one role in this example, and we can go and manually change these attributes for role once it is imported. So let's click on functional area, add, and say finance, right? Owners. So what we're going to do is after we import these two rows, we'll make the changes in the role. Or I can specify the alternate to role owner. Okay. Company. Select the company that you want to assign to this roles. And that's it, right? Now let's go and say next. I'll say review. It should show you all the rows that it's going to bring in. Okay, all the rows, right, till Now, if you see, it brought in the previous role also that we changed. But because we said no, it is not going to be overwritten. All right, so let's say, okay, testing, role import, 3, let's say, okay, and say submit. See, it says that because it found the roles already there, right? Role name exists. To overwrite it, you must enable the override function because we said no, right? Which is okay. So the 7 roles were not imported because they already existed in the BRM system and we didn't want to overwrite them, right? Okay, so we got 11 roles. So 11 plus 7, you have 18 and plus few other roles, right? Let's go and do a search, right? And say search. So you have the list of roles now, right? All in complete stage. Now, if you look at the right? Now let's pick the role and look at more details. And you see it's all finance, right? Which is not right. So you need to change. So let's say if you want to change it, what you need to do is you need to go to the define role phase and then okay, we just displayed it. So select the role and open. Okay. And now because you want to edit it, go to properties. Oh, edit it. Okay. Then you can give the sensitivity if you want to, then certification part and the functional area. This finance, you can remove, add, and then if you have anything to do with, let's say we don't have let's select sales in this case, right? Then you have the companies, which is fine. The rule approvers were also not right. So you can go and remove these, right? And add the ones that you want. Okay, so let's take the PTP approver, okay? Okay, so let's take the PTP owner. and alternate owner. Select these two checkboxes, save and continue. And we know now that, the role has to be in the complete phase, and when you go through the steps, you also need to do two things. One, analyze the risks, and then also generate the roles. So just go ahead and continue, right? So do the risk analysis with the rule set. That is your rule set. Okay, so you have no violations in this role. Save and continue. And the next step, you have to generate the role also, because you made the changes to some, attributes. So generate the roles. Okay, you need to enter the password here, right? Continue. If you don't want to do the risk analysis, that is fine. Submit and close. And now save and continue, right? Now it's in complete stage. Now close this. Okay, so we got these roles here. All right, now let's close this. Now we still don't have some more roles, right? Now let's go and do the role import. Now this time, let's do a blanket run. Okay, select SAP, landscape, R3, source system. And if you want to do override existing, now keep in mind that once you do this, whatever changes we made to the roles that were imported, those will be overwritten. Okay, do you want to import all the roles except predefined roles? I will say yes. So everything that is there now in the backend system except the SAP ones, the roles that begin with SAP or with the roles that SAP has delivered, they will not be imported. Okay, because I'm saying all roles except SAP because if I select the SAP roles also, then it's going to take a lot of time to complete the process. So we don't want to waste time on that. So you can practice if you want. Okay, do you think we should assign the attributes? Maybe, because you don't have to change everything, right? When you go to the role, it doesn't really matter, right? So you can save this or just set default values if you don't want to do anything. Okay, let's do the default values this time and say next. Or we need to still give this. Okay, go back because those are mandatory fields. That's why. Okay, these are mandatory fields. You don't have anything there. So let's say finance and something like this, right? Anyway, so let's give critical level also in that case. Say hi, next. See, we didn't assign any, functional area or company or role owners, okay? All right, go, preview, and see what roles come in. Okay, so what have we done here? So we said overwrite, I guess. See, even they say all the delivered roles are coming. How many roles are there? 567 roles, okay? Or so which is going to take a lot of time, okay? So let's do this. Let's go back. No, that's fine. Let's see how long does it take. So preview list, show preview, and next, and say testing role import 4. Okay, if you want to schedule it in the background, you can do it in the background. Okay, but let's do it in the foreground. It will take a few minutes because 500 and some odd rows need to be imported. So we'll see. Okay, so now we see 567 rows have been imported successfully, right? That includes the rows that were already imported and now are overwritten. Okay, so our overwritten rows will be somewhere at the bottom. Okay, so it will be there somewhere. We can do a role search and then look at the attributes. But this is it, right? So you can import all the roles from backend systems like this. All right, let's close this window. All right, so we imported the role import. Now let's go and check what the role update. So click on role update. Now the mass role updates is, it's like SU10 for adding, let's say a transaction code into some role, right? One transaction or removing a transaction from multiple roles at one go. Okay, so it's not only the transaction codes actually, you can also update role attributes and mass with role mass update. Okay, and you can also change the role methodology and go and reset it to the first step if you want to. Okay, so let's go and add a couple of one or two, at least two roles. Okay, that's what we want to do. Okay, so we want to see any role. Let's take a technical role that we have. So let's say X colon asterisk and search. So what we're going to do now in, let's say in the basis role, right? And let's say the security admin role, for example. In these two roles, we want to add some transaction codes, okay, with some attribute. Okay, let's go and say okay. All right. So we added two roles, but you can add as many as you want, okay? As long as you're going to assign or enter the same attribute for all the roles. Let me go to next. So in the select criteria step, you need to select what you're trying to do here, right? What attribute, right? Do you want to make changes to all the attributes to in both of those roles or only certain some of them, right? Or one of them, right? So let's go in our case, let's say actions. Actions mean it's a transaction code, right? So what do you want to do with the transaction code? Do you want to update the roles? Do you want to delete the rows or you want to add the row? Add. Okay. So let's say we want to add. And this reset role methodology, we can do reset methodology, but we are not going to do that. Okay. So let's go and say next. Okay. So what do you want to, so here in select values, you enter what values you want to add to the two roles, right? In this case. So because you're doing it from the BRM side, you need to push it to the backend. So before we do that, let's go and open up another session here and go to PFCG, okay? Okay, so the basis role, because we want to add one row, one transaction code, which is not there in both these rows, correct? So let's go and check what do you have. You have SM02, 59, 51, DB02, and DB12. Okay, now let's go and take the security admin role because that was the other role that we took. Okay, what does this have? PFCG, SU01 and SU10. Now, let's say you want to add a transaction, let's say SUIM, okay? Let's add transaction SUIM to both the roles. All right, so let's go back to here and click on add. What is that you want to add? We wanted to add SUIM, right? User information system. Okay, now if you want to add another transaction code, let's add another transaction code. Let's say SUPC. Let's add another one. Let's say SM21. Okay, let's see if the basis don't have it. It's not there. Okay. All right. So let's say we added these three transaction codes, right? Now click on next. And let's say so okay, what we are doing here is, right, we are adding three transaction codes to two rows. Okay. There's a commonality factor here is the three transaction codes. And say submit. Okay, it says successful. Okay, now let's go and check in the backend system whether the transaction codes were added or not. So we added, what all did we add? SUIM, SUPC and SM21, right? Now you see the authorizations are not generated here. So we'll make a note of these two rows because we have we can use the mass generation feature. You know, there's another option for generating mass rows. We'll use that to generate these two rows. Okay, let's do that. Now, similarly, now, so close this window now. Right. Now, so we updated role. So similarly, if you want to delete a transaction code or change any attribute, okay, or update any attribute, you can use these steps. Okay, in the select criteria, you basically, in the first, you update, add the roles. In the select criteria, you select the attribute, and in the third, assign the values, whatever you want to give. Okay, let's close this. Now let's go and do. Okay, so before we do the derived roles, let's go and do role generation. Okay, so because we didn't generate those two roles, right? So let's go and now see if these two roles can be generated through this option. Okay, add this role, select, and now let's go and pick this role. This is like SUPC. Okay. All right, so I say okay. And now once the roles are given, we are not in the change mode here. We are not. Okay. All right. Say you add and then now you submit. Okay. So let's go and submit. To the main screen, right? Now let's see. It's for schedule as a background job. So you click on the background jobs here. And then you see the schedule name is mass role generation. The status is finished. And now you can go and check the results, view results. So these two roles were successfully generated, correct? Success. Okay, close this. Now let's go back to the backend system and see if the role was generated. If the role is generated here. Okay, so this is how you do a mass generation, which is like your SUPC. Okay, now let's go back. Let's close this. All right. Now, similarly, if you want to do risk analysis, right, mass risk analysis, you can do that too. So click on role risk analysis and do this. And let's click on add, okay? Now, let's say we want to do the risk analysis for all the roles that belong to P:/Fin. Okay, now we have some roles here and let's say you pick 3 or 4 of them, okay? If you don't want to do for all. Okay, so let's do this. Just 5 roles. Okay, say okay. So we are doing a risk analysis for mass roles, okay? Multiple roles at one time, meaning at one shot. So click on submit. Again, it schedules a background job, right? So close this window and click on background jobs. So role mass risk analysis, one time schedule, and it is still active. Okay, so maximize this. And at the bottom you have the refresh screen, right? So click on refresh and you will see it is finished now. Now select the job and say view results. And here it is going to tell you what all risks are involved in which role, what are the violations in each of the roles. So the rule ID, risk ID is this within the same role. Okay, so all the roles that have violations, it will be listed here. The ones that don't have the violations, they are not listed here. Okay, and now if you want to mitigate the risk, any risk, you can mitigate the risk from here also. Okay, all right, let's close this. So we have seen how to mitigate and how to do mass risk analysis. Okay, now close this. This is you can delete the background jobs. Okay, the list from the list. All right. Now let's go and check these two options, right? Derived role org value update. Okay, so click on the map name, see what happens. So we had created, in SPRO, right? This is coming from SPRO. That value that we are seeing, the role mapping org value, mapping value is coming from SPRO configuration. Where did we make that configuration? We made it under, not here, under role management. The org level mapping. All right, so so these 3 show up there. This is what we see here. Now, we had created the derived roles with 2000, right? Let's go and update that with, let's say 3000, for example. So let's see that. So you have all this org units, org levels, basically. And then do you want to merge organizational field values or do you want to override the organization field values? One of these. Okay. So I'm going to say merge so that, we can see whether we can try both actually. Let's do the merge first and see what happens to one of the roles. Okay. So once you have the org levels, click on next. So impacted roles. There's no impacted roles. You go back. Did we miss something? Okay, so let's understand how this is working, okay? So you, from the mapping, so we built, remember we built a couple of, derived roles based out of this mapping, right? So select that mapping, let's say override organization field values, and then display, select this display roles derived from the map only, checkbox, okay? Okay, that's how you're getting the role, the derived roles list here. Okay, so click on next and put a ticket number. Say testing derived role update. Click on update. And let's go and do it in foreground and say next. Updated. So let's see what did it update. So let's go and check in the backend. What did it do? Okay, so let's try this one more time. Okay, let's see what happens. See, if we go and let's say edit this mapping and add a new entry, what are the org levels we have? Let's pick something that has got an asterisk. Okay, so let's say the business area or accounting type. Okay, so let's take I'm going to see what these field values are. Okay, I'm going to remove, let's say the controlling area, for example, and save it. I want to see what that field name is. KOKRS. Okay, let's see this, and let's say 8, and let's say 2000. Okay, let's see what happens this time round. Okay, now we updated this. Generate the role. Okay, come out, and let's run this thing, this step one more time. Okay, let's see if it updates. So let's go and update the derived road org level update. pick the map that was used for creating the derived roles, right? Now we can say merge org level values or overwrite org level field values, okay? And let's go and pick this. But why don't we have Keiko, yeah, it's Keiko, KOKRS is there, okay? Now let's go and select this. You get the derived role. Now the idea is we didn't maintain that org level, right, or org value. So it should be maintained now. Testing derived roles. Select and run it in the back foreground. Now we are doing it only one role because we had only one role that was built on that role mapping. Okay, so if we had multiple roles, we could update multiple derived roles. So click on next. Says success, right? Now let's go back to the backend role and see what happened. Okay, now it's maintained. And in the controlling org level value, you should have the value 2000. Okay, so if you want to update the mass derived role based on a particular org level mapping that you have defined in SPRO, right? So we added that controlling area org level here as a child to this org value mapping. So in such scenarios, if you want to update the roles, which derived roles which are based over, based on this, on a particular org value mapping, then you can use this mass update, derived role org values update. Okay. All right. The last option under role mass up maintenance is role derivation. Let's check what we can do with it. Now we have had a couple of roles that we created, right? So let's take these two roles. Okay. We want to create roles based on this. Okay. So let's see. Go to the backend role and see what all org levels do we have in this. Okay. You have company code, business area, and accounting tab and controlling area. Okay. Let's take that. And also let's take maybe these two. Okay, let's see. Okay, so we're just thinking for the org level. So you have the purchasing group, plant here, okay? Okay, let's see. So we can take this if you want. Okay, and then let's take this one. So we want to build roles, derived roles based out of these two. Okay, so we have asterisks there. So let's go build derived roles out of these. Okay, see what happens. These two roles. All right. So what is the org mapping that you want to use? Okay, so let's say this time I want to use org value mapping 3000. Okay, so click on OK. And you have these three fields there. Okay, now click on next. So these three fields are coming from SPRO. So if you go and check SPRO, this mapping, so this is the one that you're talking about, and then you have all these fields here. Okay. Now, if you look at, if you scroll down, you have all those fields. Okay. All this sales group, purchasing group, and whatnot. Okay. Now let's go and say next. Let's say the role name. So we want to build for this role, right? So what is the 3000? What is this? Goods received for company code 3000. Okay. Now, oh, this is the master role, right? So the master role is, my bad. This is the master role. Okay. Now, what is the description for that master role? Okay, so it's goods received to PO. Okay, so let's go goods received to PO. And let's say we are, this one, we give it to MM. So let's take materials management and use sub-process, landscape, SAP R3, exclude master roles that have been derived from the selected leading orgs and exclude master roles that do not have the selected leading orgs. Let's say search. Okay, let's say do this. No matching records found. Okay, so looks like, again, we made the same mistake that we made earlier. So let's pick 2000 and say okay. And you get all the, so let's take the master role and see if this one helps. No. So let's pick the let's pick the master role from here. Okay, let's pick this. Okay, and then go to finance and then go to accounts payable and let's see what happens. Okay, so we got this role because the derived roles out of this master role was based out of this map, org mapping. Okay. All right. So next, go to next. Right. If you had any more master roles that are based out of this org level mapping that we selected, you would have got those listed here. And then go to next and put the ticket number. Okay. Let's say okay. All right. Now, if you want, this is a master role. Now, if you want to give the names here, okay, underscore 3. Okay, let's do that and let's give the set 2000. Okay, okay, okay. Now, the only thing you need to remember is these two features, right? The org level derived, no, the derived role features that we have looked at, this one and the previous one, work only with the org mapping that have already been used, okay, for deriving the roles. So let's do this. Okay, say submit. Okay, so the point at this one should have been created. Okay, so let's go and check in the backend whether this role has been created or not. So this is 2 and here we said it was 2000, right? That's the description we gave. Change, authorizations are generated, click on change and go to org level values and you see as per that mapping, you get the org values automatically populated. Now, if there is any org level value which was not part of the mapping, right? This mapping I'm talking about. Okay, if this, say for example, plant is there, or if this on an org level that is not here, but it's here, right? Then system will automatically populate it with asterisks. Okay, for example, we don't have accounting type here, right? But the account type is in the role. So the system will automatically take it as an asterisk. All right, so we saw this. So the point, okay, so what we observed here now with a little bit of trial and error is that you can for derived role org value update and role derivation, you can only use the org level mapping and work with the roles that already have used the org level mapping. Okay. All right. So we have seen all the options under role mass maintenance. We'll see now role mining. Okay.